It started with a phone call, a simple, late-night ring that broke the silence of an ordinary life. Little did he know, it was the beginning of a night that would change everything. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Michael Carter was half asleep, the warm hum of late-night television lulling him into a drowsy state. He almost didn't hear it. His hand fumbled for the phone on the nightstand, and for a brief second, he considered letting it ring out. Nothing good ever came from answering calls at this hour. But something compelled him to pick it up. "Hello." His voice was groggy, slightly annoyed. For a moment, there was only static, a faint hiss on the other end, as though the connection was struggling to form. Then a voice, calm, measured, but with an unsettling edge. "Michael Carter?" Michael sat up, the sleepiness draining from his body in an instant. The voice was unfamiliar. He didn't recognize it from anywhere, but it knew his name. "Yes. Who's this?" There was a pause. Then, the voice spoke again, this time more urgent. "I don't have much time. Listen carefully. You don't know me, but I need you to trust me. There's going to be a disaster tomorrow. Something catastrophic. Hundreds of lives are at stake, and only you can stop it." Michael felt a chill run down his spine. His mind raced through possibilities. Was this some kind of prank? A scam? But there was something in the voice, something cold and certain, that made him hesitate. "What are you talking about?" he asked, now fully alert. "Who is this?" The voice continued, unbothered by Michael's confusion. "I'm calling you from the future, Michael, and I don't mean months or years. I mean decades. Tomorrow, at exactly 2:15 p.m., an explosion will occur at the West Side Plaza. You need to be there, and you need to stop it." Michael froze, the absurdity of the statement crashing over him. Wait, hold on a second. The future? This is insane. How am I supposed to believe any of this? The voice didn't waver. "I know how this sounds, but time is running out. People's lives depend on you, Michael. If you don't stop it, the consequences will be unimaginable." Michael stood, pacing his small apartment. His heart pounded in his chest, torn between hanging up and diving deeper into whatever bizarre situation he had just been thrown into. "And what am I supposed to do?" he asked, voice rising. "Just show up and stop an explosion. How?" The voice softened, as if trying to calm him. "There's a man. He'll be there, setting up the explosives. He's disguised as a maintenance worker. You'll recognize him because he's the only one in the lobby wearing a blue cap. Stop him before 2:15 and you'll prevent the explosion." Michael shook his head in disbelief. "Why me? Why not call the police? Or stop it yourself if you're from the future?" There was a moment of silence before the voice responded. "I wish I could explain everything, but I can't. Just know that the future depends on your actions. You're the only one who can prevent this. If you don't, there's no going back." The line went dead. Just like that, the strange voice from the future was gone, leaving Michael alone in the quiet of his apartment, phone still pressed to his ear. For a long time, he stood there, replaying the conversation in his head. Was it real? A prank? But the details, they were too specific, too bizarre to be a joke. Yet, how could someone possibly be calling from the future? What would you do? Would you ignore it, shrug it off as a prank? Or would you go, just in case, even if it made no sense at all? The next morning, Michael's thoughts were a blur. He couldn't focus at work, couldn't shake the eerie feeling the phone call had left behind. Every time he tried to convince himself it was a hoax, something nagged at him, pulling him back to the voice's warning. What if it was real? What if something was about to happen, and he was the only one who could stop it? By noon, he'd made up his mind. He had to go. Even if it was nothing, even if it was all in his head. He couldn't ignore the chance that lives were at stake. He left work early, telling his boss he had a family emergency, and headed toward the West Side Plaza. As he approached the plaza, he scanned the area, his eyes darting from person to person. It was a typical weekday afternoon, shoppers and workers milling about, unaware of the supposed danger lurking nearby. Then he saw him. Near the entrance, a man in a maintenance uniform stood, adjusting a panel on the wall. The blue cap. His heart raced as he realized the man matched the description exactly. He had to act, but how? What was he supposed to do? Confront him? What if he was wrong? Michael's mind spun with indecision. Then he saw it. A small black device tucked behind the panel the man was working on. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but unmistakably dangerous. A bomb. Without thinking, Michael rushed forward, his instincts kicking in. "Hey, what are you doing?" The man turned, startled, eyes wide with surprise. For a moment, they locked gazes, and Michael knew this was the man the voice had warned him about, the one who would set off the explosion. I'm just doing maintenance," the man stammered, trying to move away from the panel. But Michael grabbed his arm. "Maintenance doesn't involve planting bombs," Michael growled, yanking the man away from the wall and wrestling him to the ground. The people nearby began to notice. Confusion spreading through the crowd. A security guard ran over, and before long, the man was restrained, protesting his innocence. But Michael didn't care about the noise around him. He ripped open the panel, revealing the bomb. The sight of it sent shivers through him. It was real. All of it was real. Within minutes, the authorities arrived, evacuating the plaza and disarming the bomb. Michael stood in the middle of the chaos, adrenaline surging through his veins, barely able to process what had just happened. He had stopped it. The explosion, the disaster. He had actually stopped it. It should have ended there. A disaster averted, a hero made. But sometimes, the truth isn't so simple. Sometimes, the real story begins after the danger is over. That night, as Michael sat in his apartment, his phone rang again. His heart skipped a beat. He hesitated for a moment before answering, half expecting the same strange voice from the night before. "Michael." It was him, the same calm, measured voice. But this time, there was no urgency, only silence after the name. "I did what you said," Michael whispered, still reeling from the day's events. "I stopped it." The voice sighed, almost in relief. "Yes, you did well, but, Michael, this was only the beginning." Michael's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "I stopped the explosion. I did what you asked." The voice hesitated before responding. "You've set events in motion now. The future has changed, but it's fragile. There's more to come, things you can't see yet. But you're involved now, Michael. You can't walk away from this." Michael's head spun. "What are you talking about?" "More. I did what you wanted. I stopped the disaster." The voice remained calm, unshaken. "The future is always shifting, Michael. One disaster averted doesn't mean peace. It means change. Be ready. I'll be in touch again." The line went dead. It was supposed to be over, wasn't it? But when you change the future, you don't just stop at one event. You open a door to possibilities, dangerous ones. Michael stared at the phone, his mind racing with questions. Was this just the beginning? What had he gotten himself into? And who was the voice on the other end of the line? In the quiet of his apartment, he knew one thing for certain. His life was no longer his own. The future, whatever it held, was waiting, and soon it would call again.